Hello and welcome to a new episode of Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Once again, talking about the game we all love.
We're back. I can't believe we're back already. It feels like we've not been away, but it's time for a new season. We're back to talk some more snooker.
We really are. Great to see you, Phil. Yeah, we are back from our month off. Listen, I've been away on my holidays. Now, I'm going to give you a clue as to where I went. See if you can guess. Could I sing the clue? Do you mind?
Yeah, no, I don't mind at all.
Here we go then. You know, I like a bit of singing. Let's see if we can get this right. Fly away on Venga Airways. Fly me high. Ibiza sky. Whoa, we're going to Ibiza. Whoa, back to the island. Whoa, we're gonna have a party. Whoa, in the Mediterranean Sea. I think you're gonna get it.
It's a strong clue, isn't it? It's a big hint. I'm going to go with Ibiza.
Very much so. Yep. Victoria and I had a lovely time together. It really was an absolute delight. And normal holidays are good, aren't they? I always try and think a bit snobby about them, but actually, a few ludicrous edges. But I might be missing a trick there. Really enjoyed it at the old Sunshine Island. But Phil, back, and do you know what we should do first? We should talk about Ken Doherty, shouldn't we? Because the great man has retired from snooker, and we will, of course, see him playing seniors. We will, of course, see him commentating and hear that great voice. But in terms of sort of main tour action, that's it from Ken. And he's been wonderful, hasn't he? I mean, let's be clear, over decades and decades, he's a joy for us to know in a small way through our media connections, and such a an absolute delight as a person. What a player, former world champion, and so good for so long. That's the thing about Ken. He kept sort of his consistency levels up so high, you know, throughout his 40s into his 50s. And, just great credit to him, really. And, we bandied that word ambassador about. I mean, it's totally appropriate for him, isn't it? He sells the game. And like a lot of people, very much like the late John Vergan that we just lost so sadly, he would talk to anybody in the same way, Ken. I've seen it. I've seen it everywhere. Doesn't matter who you are. This is what everyone should be like in life, of course. But everyone's different, and not everyone can quite be like that. But he would just talk to everyone in that sort of delightful way, and good guy to watch on his day as well. As they winning all the big titles and the biggest of the lot. Could have probably won more, but he was playing an era with a lot of guys. Those class of '92 were coming up, and Henry was around, and he had lots of sort of big rivals. But yeah, let's have your tribute to Ken. He's just a special character in snooker. And as I say, let's not make it too much of a goodbye because we'll see him all over the place, thank God, for years to come. But, obviously not so much on the table. And yeah, great player, great ambassador. And thank you, Ken, for all of us in snooker, I'm sure, on behalf of us. I know you'll have yours say now, for the memories.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, they're a bit funny, these retirements, because obviously when you see retiring, you think that's really sad. It's an end of an era. But I suppose it's not going to change too much in terms of from the fans' point of view. We're going to see him punditing and hear him commentating and see him in the seniors and the 900 stuff. Because I guess we haven't seen him loads on the main tour in recent years anyway. But as I say, end of an era. He turned pro in 1990, so it's a long old time to be on tour. Achieved so much. Yeah, you say he could have won more. He's been in so many finals. There's just
Mm.
that. I say just one world championship. That's still great, but two more finals, three at the UK, two at the Masters. Um, yeah, I'm always banging that drum for people who finish runner-up, not getting the credit they deserve, because it seems like everyone's forgotten apart from the winner. But he won a lot of matches in the biggest tournaments, and in lots of other tournaments as well. So yeah, shouldn't be forgotten what an outstanding player he was. But you're right about the ambassadorial role as well. He's just brilliant to work with for us guys, isn't he? And yeah, I see a lot of people say this phrase is a sort of great servant to the sport, and totally get what they mean, and that's like a compliment. But I always think servant sounds a bit wrong in this scenario. It's so much more than that. He's not just sort of like turning up and doing a job. He's contributed way more. So yeah, no, I had a real pleasure to chat to him on the day it was announced, and he's an anecdote machine, is Ken. Anyone who's been around him
Yeah.
will know that, and they're all great. So yeah, no, congratulations on a superb career. Um, and it was sort of forced upon him a little bit because he took away. Sorry, the World Snooker did not offer him the invitational card, which he's been playing on for a little while now. So he wasn't forced to retire. He could have gone to Q school if he wanted, but I think he thought that was time. He had been thinking about it for a few years. He'd mentioned it 2 or 3 years ago to me that he was thinking about it. So that sort of pushed him into it a bit. But that'll be interesting to see if that is a move they're thinking about doing going forward. I know Jimmy White and Marco Fu are both going into the second year of their current invitational 2 year cards. So is that a policy that they're going to get rid of them in the future? If not, I wonder why it was Ken that got his withdrawn and not the other guys. So we'll wait and see next season, I suppose. I think he was a little bit disappointed just on the timing of that, is what he told me, because he didn't get much notice. I think he would have rather known that was being withdrawn ahead of like the World Championships, and then he could have known that was his last game coming up, rather than sort of being told it was afterwards to an extent. But don't want to put a dampener or anything. It's still it's a celebratory time for the great career of Ken Doherty.
Well, indeed. And yeah, some very good information there from you. And I like the anecdote machine. Yeah, I mean, this is the height of naivety for me. Just a little line. On the day after the World Championship finished, I mooched my way into Central Sheffield, which I've never done before, by the way, thinking, oh, I'll just be me and a few sort of other wistful locals. Not at all. It was everyone from Snooker. Everyone and his other half and her other half were all there. Now, I found myself on a table with Ken for about 15, 20 minutes. And he just came up with a succession. I put a succession of story all about Alex Higgins and all hilarious, with the impression of Alex, part of the routine. I
Mm.
thought, yeah, anecdote machine's the line. I mean, I say, a good 80% of the stories were absolutely brilliant, and the rest were very good. It was classic Ken. He is just a pure entertainer,
Mm.
and also, I remember so well. I was at uni that final when he beat Hendry. That was such a surprise in a way because Hendry had this run of winning. It's almost, I mean, we always get ourselves a bit sort of twisted in what's underrated, what's overrated. We can't sort of talk about everything ad nauseum, but sort of think it's not quite rated enough, the fact he turned Hendry over and turned him over well at a time when Hendry was such an extraordinary, rampant, dominant figure in British sport, never mind just, and sport beyond Britain as well, not just snooker. Hell of a victory. But as you say, lost other finals, but yeah, just was at the top for so long. And we love those sort of wiki charts, don't we? And I like them in golf as well, but they're really
Yeah.
good in snooker, aren't they? And there's a period where you look at Ken, you think, bloody hell, Colonel, you were just extraordinary for that period of, getting so deep in so much. But yeah, brilliant. And we of course wish Ken well. And as I say, we'll see him an awful lot around, and we'll continue to enjoy doing so. Maybe the next thing on our agenda, Phil, would be to sort of just wrap up the few matters from the end of last season. And well, the World Seniors Championship was won by Ronnie O'Sullivan, who beat Joe Perry 10-4 in the final. And I really do mean this. I'm not very inclined to sort of be a big pontificator on the first one back, but I do, fall in the camp of those that I'm not a fan of Ronnie being in it. And I say mention Ronnie because he was the only top 16 one, I think, wasn't he, in this one. Had
Mm.
Mark Williams been there, I'd have been using the both in tandem. It's not really about Ronnie. I'd have been saying Ronnie O'Sullivan and Mark Williams. As it happened, Mark pulled out late. I think maybe I've just been brought up too much with the golf version, which golf people can enter those, but it's a sort of funny situation in snooker because so many of our superstars are now in their 50s that can still win the big one. It to me, it throws the seniors into a bit of a funny scenario. And I get people enjoy seeing Ronnie O'Sullivan, but I mean, you can see Ronnie in so many different events. Does it have to be this? Look, people are going to say to me, it's a commercial situation. The Crucible did very well. Tickets, didn't they? Wise, better than had Ronnie not been there. But look, I definitely fall in the category of not liking it. I mean, I know people say, well, what is the argument that he's too good? Well, of course, that's the argument. I mean, that's the argument 100%. I mean, it's why you don't have Tottenham or Arsenal playing in the London Senior Cup. You don't have Sean Murphy or Neil Robertson in the Tony Meo Trophy, do you, Phil? They both asked, they both want to be in it, but they'd be too good for us, probably. So, you know, look, I'm being flippant, obviously, but to me, that I prefer to see rules in place because, for me, it should be guys that are either finished in the game or lower down the rankings because otherwise it just becomes a sort of another tournament. And I, I don't know if it's lost its USP. I preferred it before, I must admit. Ken's a good example for me. I love that narrative of Ken. Can he complete the set? He's got no chance now. I'm sorry, Ken, if you're listening. I don't mean that rudely, but you're not going to win an event with Ronnie O'Sullivan in or even Ali Carter and Stuart Bingham unless it's a minor miracle because just it's obvious, isn't it? I mean, you've got the best player in the history of the sport. And I didn't get into, again, I'm going to go to you now, actually. I didn't quite buy that thing. Oh, Ronnie had to work hard to win it. Did he? I mean, every time I saw it, I know he had periods of playing really well. He looks like very half-baked performances from Ronnie, and yet he still won the tournament. So I thought it was a bit of spin saying he worked hard. I mean, I'm not sure he had to work extremely hard, really, but he did win it. We say well done to him because I'm not ungracious enough that I can't say well done to Ronnie for winning a tournament. But yeah, I would say that over to an early hot potato for you, Phil. You're normally good with those.
No, completely, yeah, completely understand the argument. Yeah, it's the spirit of it, isn't it? And snooker has become very difficult to judge an age on because you wouldn't want the age to be higher than 50, I suppose. But I suppose then it would come to rankings, which is something we've done for a number of years before this. So yeah, I mean, I'm like you in terms of a few people have sort of said, well, you can't not have him in because he's too good. So, well, you can because we've been doing that for quite a number of years before, and you had to be outside the top 64 in the rankings, never mind
Mm.
outside the top 16 or say something like that. So yeah, it can be done. And yeah, I think this wouldn't even be the best example of it because it was just sort of Ronnie and then yeah, like Ali and Stuart, like you said, who are still top players, not right at the top. But the age limit's 40 now, so you could have a seniors event, which is near enough just like a tour event, just without, Judd and Kyron and all the Chinese lads. Um, and then, like you say, it sort of you loses what it is as a seniors event if it's just near enough all the top players as it is. So, yeah, I certainly understand where you're coming from, and yeah, it just the way that he was like massively odds-on favourite to win it at the start, and then just did win it very comfortably. I agree, it was comfortable. He didn't play his best, and he was pushed a bit by Rob Milkins, but he won them all reasonably handily. So we'll see how it is going forward. If he's going to play in more seniors events, how it's going to work. But if it's just Ronnie O'Sullivan turning up and winning comfortably every time, that might lose its luster. But yeah, eventful tournament. It had a bit of a
Yeah.
sort of car crash element early on with the broken table and the defending champion playing in the practice room. It was a really bad night for them that night. But to be fair, they sorted it out, and then other than the issues that you've described, the tournament went pretty well after that. But yeah, it was a disastrous evening. I think that was a Thursday where it all went wrong.
I was trying to remember that whether it was day two. So I guess day one was all right. I mean, I thought
Yeah.
the table. I didn't watch absolutely every minute of it, but when I turned on, I did think, "God, these tables are hard work." I'm not saying I thought the slate would go. That's what happened, wasn't it? The slate sort of dropped, and then sort of balls are bouncing in the air. As you say, Alfie Burden had to play in a sort of practice area, which he was very down about. Defending champion, of course, and he just couldn't get to grips with that at all, clearly, and lost his match. Yeah, Igor Figueiredo. But I'm going to absolutely stress that the Royal Seniors have done brilliantly in so many ways, and just to make this is absolutely not remotely anything personal. I think they've done a brilliant event, over the years. To get itself on television is a hell of an effort.
Mm.
And people have said to me, well, it won't carry on being on television unless you get the big stars there. And I don't know about that. That's a debate for sure, which is why I'd probably say top 16 not, which I think is a fair sort of compromise. And, some of the stuff it does there, and you'll know this much better than I do, like that day they have for the seniors, they call it, of Sheffield, where they come in and meet the sort of people. meet the snooker stars. That's absolutely brilliant. Great community work. Can't give them enough credit. That's brilliant. So there's loads of things about the seniors I think is great. I still enjoy the seniors, but it doesn't work for me with the biggest stars in it. That's just the way I would say it. Um, I'm used to people like Bernard Langer doing well on the seniors golf tour, but Bernard Langer can't win majors still, so it works okay for me in that sport. And I use golf as an analogy because that's like to me the biggest seniors events there are in any of sport in golf. But look, I think what it was with the table thing that, and I think other people cover this really well actually. They didn't have enough time, did they? This is what the organisers said. They didn't
Mm.
get in there till quite late, which was nothing against the rules. That's the only time they could get in there. And they maybe didn't have enough preparation time. And you need tables to prepare, don't you? You need them to bed in. Everyone knows that. So, yeah, but as you say, once it got going, and maybe I'll just fill in the dots a little bit, Phil, here, and just say that there were lots of big names as well, guys that you kind of want to see there, actually. Like quarterfinals, Joe Perry beat Matthew Stevens 4-1. Ronnie O'Sullivan beat Peter Lyons 4-2. It was Craig Steadman 4, Ali Carter 3, and Robert Milkins 4, Igor Figueiredo 1. And then Ronnie O'Sullivan beat Rob Milkins 7-5. Joe Perry beat Craig Steadman 7-5. And then Ronnie O'Sullivan beat Joe Perry 10-4 in the final. So, yeah, another trophy for the prolific O'Sullivan. And I think we've maybe said all we want to say about the seniors, Phil, unless you hard pressed for anything else. And look, maybe just a word about some of the community elements, just to say it's good, isn't it? It's enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah. Oh no, yeah, you're right. They do a great job on that. And there's a youth day as well. I think they get a load of kids down there for free or extremely very cheap. And yeah, and it is a good. Yeah, there's obviously two sides to it. The tickets are much cheaper and much more gettable than the World Championship, and lots of people get to see Ronnie O'Sullivan play, which is a nice thing. And there was a funny sort of vox pop of the audience during the final when they were sort of covering the issue of whether he should be there or not, and they went and asked a load of people in the crowd, "Do you think Ronnie O'Sullivan should play in this tournament?" And obviously, they all said yes. So it was a slightly biased group of people to ask there, but yeah. So there's obviously swings and roundabouts on that. It's nice that people get to see him on TV and in person, especially in person. Um, but then there's the balance of commercial and sporting elements, isn't there?
Mm.
Otherwise, wherever Ronnie O'Sullivan is ever in the rankings, he would never have to qualify for anything if we just said it's nice if people get to see Ronnie O'Sullivan. So there has to be sporting merit to things. Um, Seniors is an interesting one where you debate on the age and the rankings and stuff. Um, but that's what it is. It's debate. People will think differently about it.
For sure. And I had a poll up actually, and it was 62-38. It sounds like I'm being sort of just like disingenuous here saying, but it's true to say that I thought it would be more. So my side won 62% didn't think Ronnie should be in it, but I thought it would be more than that.
Mm.
That's where it sounds disingenuous. I thought loads of like the real big majority wouldn't want to see Ronnie or other top players in it. I would have been saying Ronnie and Mark Williams and Ronnie, but no, it was far more that were more on the fence. So okay, fair enough. It's a good debate to have. One more thing though, I would say, if everyone that's saying, oh, it's fine for Ronnie to be in it, actually they welcome it. Well, I don't remember anyone saying when the event was like it was for years. Well, Ronnie O'Sullivan and John Higgins and Mark Williams should be in this. Did a single soul say that even? I don't remember. It's not something that I can recall hearing. So there we go. It's an interesting one. Phil, we'll move on. Xiaoxing Tong was named Player of the Year. Well deserved after a brilliant treble of Players Series events. I enjoyed your top 10. Very wise selection. I went for Wu Yizu actually as my number one. I have to say, my reckoning was that I reckon the World Championship is worth about 3 tournament wins. In fact, if I'm honest, it's probably worth about 2.5 to 3. So I made him that as the same sort of number as Xiao. But I do get the argument that, and maybe I'm too weighted on the World Championship. I do get the argument that for Player of the Season, unless someone's done something extraordinary right at the end, should probably be someone that's in your mind for that for a long time, if you get what I mean. And Zhao
Mm.
was consistent over a period of months. But I thought Will Yizzer was a good candidate. I really do think that. It wasn't just an idle one for me. He won that first ranking event. And also, and I didn't really realise this until I went through the review of the season with you. Ruiz did a lot of other stuff. He got to a
Mm.
Masters semi, yeah, another deep run. So, and I know he's got the fans player of the year, but look, Sal's a a great winner, and that treble was fabulous. I know you went for Shao. I mean, it was and yeah, maybe a word about your top 10. What I thought about your top 10 was going through it. God, that you forget after a campaign, a lot of players do a lot of good stuff. There
Yeah.
was players in sixth or seventh, and I thought, bloody hell, they did well. You know,
Yeah.
it just
Well,
shows how many
especially
events we have now.
yeah. And last season with that all those different winners, there were loads of winners who weren't in the top 10. And yeah, I sort of did that to see how different it was from the 1 year rankings, which you would think would be a very accurate reflection of the season, but it wasn't a million miles away, but it wasn't far off, mainly because Kyron had that such weird season where he did nothing in ranking events but won two massive invitationals. So he was in the top 10, but nowhere near on the 1 year list. Um, but yeah, I had Zhao as my player of the season. I think the nature of those three ranking events, that that triple may never be done again. It was very, very impressive.
Mm.
And the fact it was a decent effort by way of defense trying to break the Crucible curse, narrowly losing the quarterfinals. People have done a lot worse than that. But yeah, Wu, like you say, Wu had a good season before that. Great first title win, great Masters debut. He was in the Tour Championships. That shows how consistent he'd been over the season. So yeah, another fine choice. Selby was the other one who would possibly in contention going into the World, have it on what he'd done, but funny season really. He just had that really great purple patch and then sort of not much in the second half at all, especially in that odd sort of poor performance at the Crucible. So yeah, no, it was probably between Wu and Zhao, but we went for one each there.
Yeah, exactly. And well, the full details of all those awards you can find on the World Snooker Tour website. Uh, Zhao went into the Hall of Fame, didn't he? Which I personally thought was a bit of a questionable call, if I'm honest. I mean, on a number of issues actually, but just on the age one, I was interested by Neil Robertson's comments on this. He said many others, including myself, got in when we were in our 20s, 30s. Absolutely ridiculous when the real big hitter sports have people with stellar careers get in when they are in their mid 40s or 50s. It should be something that is earned through decades of work and reputation. Don't get me wrong, I'm proud to be in it, but it seems like a given if you have a half decent career, which is not meant to be about that, in my opinion. Yeah, I did think about this a little while ago tonight before recording. I was thinking, well, actually, this is one where we really have to have our own opinion of it because we don't know what it's meant to be, actually. We didn't invent it. But in my mind, I suppose it should be for absolute massive big hitters. And I don't know if people are getting in a bit early. Generally, I don't know if it's being spread too wide. I'm not quite sure they're getting it right. It's losing a bit of gravitas for me with some of the sort of people getting in really. If only because it's too early. That would be my view. It's an idea for an American sport. They do it far better. They've been doing it far longer. You have to be absolutely incredible to get in the Hall of Fame in the NFL and NBA and things like that. So I wasn't sure about that really. It seems like I mean, Xiao Tong in 15 years' time will have an unbelievable CV. That might be too late, but maybe there's a balance, and maybe at his age that seems a bit young to me. A bit like This Is Your Life, Phil. That's one for the teenagers with Eamon Andrews and later Michael Aspel. Famously Hendry, didn't it? Was he 21? He was like, pure
Yeah.
Hendry. I was like, I'm only 21. Maybe the old autobiographies comes into it as well. What do you do one for? That some of these guys have sort of like four before they're 30, but that's the way it goes. It's not something I feel massively about, but I thought I needed another point there. What's your call on that?
Yeah, well, I think I don't know if had lost gravitas because I think I'd thought this before really that it's just sort of there'd been a lot of people go in. I think when they launched it, they just put all the world champions in there, which maybe they would go in eventually, but it just felt like that's just a given. Because didn't Mark Allen go in as well? I think that was also sort of
Yeah, and
the
he hasn't won the world title. Now
no, no.
he's had an unbelievably good career,
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, yeah, you don't have to win the world title to getting that. Jimmy got in it, for example, unbelievable guy like Jimmy, of course, with his service. So yeah, there's nuance involved. But
Mm.
again, Mark Allen, could that have waited? I don't know until he sort of maybe does win the world title. Who knows? He came
Yeah,
close. He came close this time, of course. But
I think
yeah.
it might be more of a thing if it was only done when you retire, you know. I know that's what they do in boxing. I think you have to be inactive for a certain amount of years to get in there, and that's quite a well-regarded Hall of Fame. So yeah, I mean, it's not something I lose sleep about because maybe because of the way they've done it, and it's just sort of would give it like Neil went a bit too far by saying half decent career. You still got to have had a very, very good snooker career to get in, but it's sort of any name you could think of who could be in it will be in it. So there's less of a sort of interesting debate and sort of struggle to get in there, I guess.
Wise words. I've got name check question mark. I think the question mark is going to become yes because I'm looking at the time. I think it's worked out so far. We're trying to do about 20 for each segment. Let's see how we get on. We should say you are listening here to the Talking Snooker podcast with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Hello, everybody. It's Talking Snooker here and Women's World Championship, Phil. I mean, that was a hell of a line, wasn't it? Panchaya Chanoy at the age of 18, winning the title, beating Rhiannon Evans 6-2 in the final. The women's side of the game has no problem with very young winners, does it? Or very young talent. It's kind of a theme there, really. Uh, Earns a 2-year tour card with that victory. The youngest world champion since Anne Marie Farron back in 1987. And I was really interested because Bayulu's been quite dominant, so you kind of forget it's the fourth first-time champion in 5 years with Meek Nutchera, Baipat Siripapon, Bayulu, and now Chanoy. So it's terrific. Known as Mind, of course, and she obviously, just produced a brilliant win. I mean, we looked at the other flip side, didn't we? Can Rianne do it? She won so many. Didn't think we didn't get a stage. We didn't think Rianne would do want to get done again, of course. But she had this fascinatingly, exciting run, and she would have started as a favourite. But I mean, cracking performance in the final. Looking at the scoring, my goodness. And I know a lot of people that I know saw it and said that it's just so impressive. Breaks of 100 and 107. I mean, that's some doing in the final. It's just a brilliant effort. Another world stage tournament, and yeah, 18 years old, Phil. I mean, bloody hell. What a
Yeah.
success.
Yes, it's super impressive because it's not like the draw opened up, beat Bayulu in the quarters, beat Ming in the semi, and then beat Rianne, the 12 times champion in the final. So it doesn't get
Yeah.
much better than that. And she'd won the under 21s the day before. I think on the same day she won her semi in the main tournament, she'd won the under 21s. And she was defending her title from that. So yeah, just thoroughly, thoroughly impressive. I'd seen her name. I wouldn't have pretended to know loads about it before. I knew she'd won the under 21s previous year, but I wasn't aware that she was ready to make this breakthrough into it's sort of the big four, isn't it? The three that she beat and Ung Yu, who Rianne beat in the semis. So to take down three of the big four players, yeah, very, very impressive. And scoring, you're right. We don't see loads of centuries in the women's game, so to knock in two in the final, very exciting. And yeah, the women's game, the numbers are so much smaller that it should be more open to these guys turning up from nowhere and making an impact. There's such room for it to grow. And it looks like it is doing that. That arena they're playing in Dongguan, it's just called the Snooker Sports Arena, specifically built for snooker. And it's only sort of partially built at the minute. It's going to get bigger and bigger. They reckon 350 tables in by next year and up to 1,000 in future. Now, that's obviously
Wow.
not just for the Women's World Championship because you're not going to need all that, but it's a sort of snooker hub where people will be based for practicing, and they will have other tournaments there as well. But the Women's World Championship staying there until 2031, and wouldn't be surprised if it's much longer than that as well. So, yeah, great work being done in the women's game. There is a huge amount of room to grow, but it looks like they're growing into that space.
And I looked at some of the figures that we're watching. I mean, bloody hell, we're talking thousands and thousands. It's big, big numbers, and that's a hell of a facility, isn't it? And yeah, the more you hear, you have to say that there's direction of travel. I know I just had a discussion with you a couple of times during the World Championship because I think I was doing a couple of pieces about how best to frame it these days. It's not dominance yet. That's too strong. It's not a Chinese dominance of snooker, is it? But the direction of travel is so much going in that direction. There's no doubt about it. Shall I run through some results? I've got them. I think it's big enough for that. The last 16, then Narucha for Enfel 4, Tessa Davidson 3. So that was an exciting one. Now, Antuya Bayasaikan 4, So Man Yam 3. Bayu Lu beat Yang Men 4-1. It was Liu Jiling for Yao Yaki nil. Onyi 4, Baipat Siripapur 1. Mink Nutcharat Anupana Ramachandran 4-0. Panchaya Chanoi beat Fong Mei Mei 0-0, 4-0. And 0-0, that's a hell of a scoreline, Phil. Rhian Evans 4, Huang Qingning 0. I don't know, some of our friends from WST now will probably be absolutely disgusted with some of my pronunciation. I'm doing my best. I don't know if my best is good enough, really. Quarterfinals, Mink 4, Narucha for Enful 1. Panchaya Chanoi 4, Bayu Lu 3, Breaker 74. One little thing, I don't know if it. I've seen on the World Women's Snooker site they highlight breaks in the 30s still. I don't quite know why they do that because I famously got that 21, didn't I? Three reds, three pinks. I mean, that's only 9 away from
Mm.
score. I don't think they should do that. I think it should be 50 and above. Rhian Evans 4, Narantuya by Sakan 2, and Onyi for Liu Jiling 2. Semis, Panchaya beat Mink 5-3. Three half centuries from Panchaya in that one. And Rhian Evans beat Onyi 5-1. Really good scoring from Rhian. That's another reason why she, I guess, would have been going in as quite fancy by a lot of people. Three half centuries. And the final, as I say, it was it was 3-0 to Panchaya, including a break of 100 in the opener. Rhian got it back to 3-2, and you think, well, is this turning round? But then a real spin of frames and really good performances and scoring from Panchaya, including that break of 107. Superb win for her. We say congratulations to her and everyone that was involved in putting on the tournament. And Phil, maybe now should we move on to Q School? Because there's loads to say about that, of course. And I want you to take over now because event in so many ways. Event one, Liam Davis, Phil O'Kane, Sean O'Sullivan, and Chang Kawei all came through to earn 2-year tour cards. The best line there is O'Kane for the 14th time of asking. But of course, you spoke to him just before, didn't you? So that must have been pleasing for you, wasn't it, to bring that? And you brought that story to a lot of people. A lot of people didn't know that story. You brought that story, and like, hang on a minute, he's done it. I mean, I wonder. I saw some people ask this, and I wonder how much him getting it out there, having a sort of wide platform that you gave him. He played good snooker. I'm not saying Phil Haig did it, but it didn't hinder his chances. I bet you must have loved all that.
It was Haig what won it. Yeah, no, I was thrilled with that. That was just really nice because I'd not spoken to Phil, and Q School rolls around every year, and I wonder what the best way of sort of covering it a bit. So I'd seen Phil's name loads of times for the reason that he'd played in Q School so much. So and one of the first things I said to him was like, I wanted to. Do you know how many times you played in it? And he didn't have a clue. And when I said oh, this is up to this is going to be 14, he wasn't thrilled by that. So I didn't want it at all to be any sort of like meant taken in any disrespectful way because that was not how it was meant. It was just sort of these guys that plug away for ages and how hard it is to get on tour. So the fact that he came through it and did it, just a lovely, lovely story. So yeah, I mean, seemed like a great guy. Works really hard. He's been plugging away for ages. And as I said in that piece, he practices with pros, has done for years and years and years, and it's very frustrating when you see people who you compete with on the practice table and they're your friends and they're doing what you want to do. So yeah, just thrilled for him to get on. Um, Obviously, that's what happens when anyone gets on for the first time. You feel like you completed something. Really, it's just the start, and it gets a lot more difficult from here. So we'll see how he gets on. But I wish him all the best. And that was a nice story, yeah, because everyone else really was former pros coming back in both UK events. But yeah, it was good to see Liam Davis come straight back on because I think he's still got tremendous potential, even though he didn't quite work out last year, especially. And Sean O'Sullivan, Sean Carway, as you say. And then the second event, Andrew Higginson, Gong Zhenyi, Stuart Carrington, and Mitchell Mann. So yeah, Gong is only 20, I think, but the other three there are sort of they're just like Q school names, aren't they? It seems to be that
Mhm.
kind of player that gets through a lot. And fair play, to get through that is very difficult, and whoever does deserves it. But sort of underwhelming, I think, when you see those kind of results at Q School. It's just like, oh yeah, those guys. I would have been pushed to think whether they were on tour or not. Actually, previously, they're in that sort of zone where they're on and off. And as I say, not taking anything away from them, people who come through that they deserve it. But you want to see a younger name or a name from an interesting country or a story like Phil O'Kane, who's been plugging away for ages, and we didn't really get a lot of that elsewhere in the UK events.
Well, you said so much great stuff there. And one thing I'm scribbling down here is you saying it's the sort of start of the journey, it's going to get hard. And the reason that's interesting to me specifically is maybe we'll do this in a little while if, make sure I've written down to remember is, I know a lot of people saying that about whether this is the right way to do it or the best way. I mean, I'm like everyone else. I don't really like, not everyone else, but I don't really like this, if I'm honest. But I would say that the reason I was interested by you saying that is it's not as if snooker gets easy after this. So in a way, it's cutthroat and sort of nightmarish for a lot of the time when you're playing. I mean, if I thought of, and I thought this a little while ago, there's one underlying theme of one of the top themes of this podcast, and maybe other podcasts. It's how frustrating snooker is. That's kind of like the overriding thing, is it? It's a hard game that's hard for most pros,
Yeah.
and even the winners do a lot more losing than winning. So, you know, a balance. I don't disagree with people that say maybe it should be more for those Q Tour events. It reminded a ludicrous analogy of mine. It reminded me a little bit of I'm old enough to I didn't do O levels, but my brother did, and I was near, I was one of the first ones to do GCSE. Far easier, of course, than O levels, no contest. But of course, what GCSEs did was it meant you did stuff during the 2 years that counted. And everyone likes that more, don't they? Probably because it's a lot
Mm.
of pressure to do it on the day. And maybe in snooker we're too weighted now on those sort of few days. I don't know, but I would say that I'm not a big fan of it, and no one seems to be. I love some of the quotes that came through, Phil. By the way, um, one thing just to say on Phil O'Kane, he said people. And this is to you. People around you don't really understand. People are like, "Why are you still chasing? What are you doing?" That annoys me a bit. I thought that's quite British, really, a little
Mm.
bit. It's almost like, oh, what are you doing, mate? I think there's a lot of. It sounded a very different life, but I remember a lot of that when I was sort of start. Oh, you don't want to do journalism. Oh, I'm not sure. That's not going to work out for you. It's like, well, if I listened to that lot, I'd have been, just, you know, doing a local job, not doing much really. I just thought, yeah, it's classic sort of lack of encouragement there, but that's probably a bit of a, throwaway thing compared to the big deal. But he says, I'm overwhelmed. I was clearing up at the end, holding back tears, sweating and shaking. I was an emotional wreck, and this means the world to me. I went to a pool tournament about 8 weeks ago. I said to the owner of my club, after this, you will see me in the club 7 days a week and working hard. He messaged me this morning, said that everything has paid off. It is all affirmation. So that's absolutely smashing. And yeah, he beat Jamie O'Neill, didn't he? 4-1 in the decisive match. I noticed he beat Daniel Wormersy earlier as well. And, among it is very good run, actually. Yeah, Liam Davis, you're right. He said, I never want to come back here. I'll be honest with you. He beat Dean Young 4-2 in the decisive match. And yeah, O'Sullivan beat Joshua Tomon 4-2. And then Cheng straight back on, beating Jack Bradford 4-1. As you say, yeah, um, it's a tale of returnees completely for the second, wasn't it? Higginson, Mann, Carrington, and Gong. Again, it's the quotes I love. Mann said, I don't think I've ever been so nervous playing snooker. Carrington said, it's torture here for everybody. Now, listen, it's torture in a snooker sense. We know that. Don't want to go on the Mark Pougat's line, whether we should say disaster. It's torture in a snooker sense. Do you know what I mean, though? I mean,
Yeah.
that's another argument entirely. Let's not go into that for now. But yeah, but the other thing, Phil, there's a lot of lines. Rob Milkins and Mark Davis, they didn't make it, did they? They were both pros when John Major was in Downing Street. They started off. You talk about Ken Doherty, but they're the similar ilk going back a long, long time. But I think I saw Rob's in qualifiers coming up, so we'll it's not the end of seeing
No.
these great guys that we've been seeing forever. But it's always a moment, isn't it? Because they're part of our lives if you follow this sport. They've just been there forever. They're permanent sort of companions in a way. But yeah, I don't know if you want to say anything on or whether we should change now in terms of more geared towards a sort of regular matches throughout the season. If you want, like at the Q Tour events, is it too much on the day, or is it actually no? Bit of Barry Hearn, play well on the bloody day because you've got to do well when you're on the tour. It's good preparation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate Q School, but I think it would be better overall if there was a secondary tour where you could, it's probably too much to say you're doing a living, it's but if there was a amateur circuit good enough where you could earn decent money, a number of players could earn decent money over the season, that would be a better breeding ground for more talent to come through, wouldn't it? So yeah, if there was more investment into that, and that would lead to more cards being on there. I do think the guys who drop off the tour should get a chance to go straight back on and not have to like play a whole season to get back on.
Yeah,
But
I get
that
that.
could just be, a couple of cards rather than the 8 cards you get at the UKQ school. Um, and yeah, just a sort of thriving, bigger and better Q Tour. Q Tour's done very well over the last few years in expanding, and not just the UK one, all over the world. So yeah, I think that is the direction of travel we said before. But I think that's what people would prefer. But I think I spoke to Jason Ferguson about this the other day. I think he was quite keen on players having a chance to bounce back, and he also mentioned some players only want to play once a year. They don't want to do a whole Q tour. Not
Well,
sure
that's
about.
interesting.
Yeah, it is. I wasn't sure if you necessarily have to cater for people just to fit the needs of every player. That if you only want to play once a year, like probably professional sports not for you. So, but the way he was speaking, I would be very surprised if a singular event wasn't there, even if the movement is much more towards Q Tour. There will be still some sort of mechanism for players to bounce back, or maybe some of the players to enter into a tournament like Q School.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The Asia Oceania Q School, it was Deng Ho Hu, Thanawat Tirapong Paiboon, Huang Ji Hao, and Liu Yang came through. They've got new 2-year tour cards. Very different stories from event one. That's Deng on tour for the first time at the age of 23. Tirapong Paiboon, I remember very well. I'm sure we all do. That's a return story. He was on tour from 2010 to 2016. Didn't remember all the stuff about him, but of course he made a maximum at the age of 16. So that's one thing that came to mind from remembering when reading up about him. And then from event two, that's Huang straight back on tour at the age of 30, and Lou on tour for the first time at age 22. I think I'm right in saying. So there we are. That's interesting. And yeah, so at least we had some new players there, Phil. But Thanawat's the one that I think that really sort of came to my mind because it's surprising he's been a decade away, because he obviously a good player back in the day, but keep going, and he's got his reward to come back on now.
Well, yeah, he was an interesting case because he came through that a couple of years ago, but then that match fixing suspension came to light, and I wasn't sure how it happened. It was from the past, wasn't it? But it did emerge that he'd fixed some matches, a number of matches, I think 6 games
Mm.
from 2013 to 15, something like that. So he's served that now. But yeah, I mean, looking at how other players have returned from match fixing or match fixing related suspensions in recent years, then he may well come back and do very well. Yeah, I mean, incredible that he made the maximum of that age. And he's been, yeah, plugging away on the amateur circuit in Asia since. So, yeah, he's not a newcomer by any stretch, and he'll be a threat down the rankings in those tiered draws, especially.
Well, I noticed you got a question about match fixing on your table, latest table, didn't you, with you about how players will be received when they come back, Which I think your answer was very wise. People do forget, don't they? They don't necessarily always get an amazing welcome, but people do sort of forget generally, don't they? Um,
I think it's just the nature of the sport, you know. If it was football, it's like a football crowd where you get booed and chanted things at. I think you'd have to do something very seriously bad for a snooker crowd to be booing you while you're at the table.
yeah, good point. Well, I think that's Q School done. So I've got a name check question mark. So we do another one, shall we? 20 minutes gone, and say you are listening here to the Talking Snooker podcast with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Hello, everybody. It's Talking Snooker here, and the new season is upon us, Phil, starting on Wednesday. China Open qualifiers. Now, of course, China Open was absent for quite a lot of years. It's back. We can't wait for that because it's exciting. I think it's going to be a good event. And the days when I've said it a lot of times now, when I was growing up, summer was really out of the four seasons. You wouldn't really count it as a snooker time at all. That's gone now. That's long gone. It is a snooker time now. There's loads, and I've had to get with it because there's loads of big events. And, we look forward to it. Wuhan Open qualifiers starting next Monday. I did like one story, Phil, that I know I mentioned to you before, and I got confused, which is not like I do about most things, about when this actually happened. I thought, have we said this before? You said, oh, we had done. Paul Norris is now on tour, isn't he? He's someone that won the Asia Pacific Snooker Championship, beat Vinny Calabrese 6-5. And, well, he's 59. It's quite a story, really. Great line at the Argus newspaper. He says, I'm the equivalent of a 39-year-old non-league player signing for Arsenal. And yeah, just quick line. He's playing down at the Castle Club in Hove. I said I'd say hello to an old friend of mine, Stephen Beach, who sent me the Argus story very kindly. Steve said he's recently moved down to Hove and says the Castle is my local since relocating down here. Excellent facilities at the club, well run, tables kept in top class condition. So I like to hear that, and it's the sort of thing you hear about these clubs, and it's great. And he's an action, isn't he, Phil? Coming up in qualifying, which we really look forward to, and it's a hell of a story, isn't it? I mean, it's just his age to do that. It's quite an effort, and yeah, that Argus story is brilliant. I encourage people to read that generally, and it gives hope to a lot of people, mustn't it? I think generally,
Yeah.
never know.
Yeah, there's all sorts of routes on tour. And yeah, I don't think he was expecting to come through that route. I think that was his local club. He played in Australia. He is British, but he moved out to Australia a few years ago, and that's where he plays. And he entered just because it was there, I think, and he ended up on tour. So look, he can obviously play. You don't win these things by accident. Whether he's at the standard to do anything on the professional tour, we'll have to wait and see. I think his first game is against Anthony Kowalski in the China Open qualifiers, who's just played at the Crucible in the World
Oh
Championship.
yeah, of course.
Tricky one for him, but we'll see. And yeah, it's a fascinating story. I don't think it would be good news for the game if there were loads of people in their 50s all turning pro at the same for the first time. But as an anomaly, it's a great little tale. So yeah, good luck to him. I enjoyed his quotes in that story as well. So he seems like a good guy. And we'll see how he gets on. Yeah, I mean that tournament had been won, the Asia Pacific tournament. Players like Lei Pei Fan and didn't Chang Bing Yu come on that way as well? So they've had some proper players coming through there. So Paul Norris has added himself to that list.
Yeah, I love this quote as well, by the way. You talk about living in Australia. He says, I love it over there. I wish I'd moved years ago. It's just paradise and all the parking is free. Brilliant. A great line straight off the back of Paradise. Phil O'Kane's in this as well. He's playing Wang Yu Hang on Wednesday. Uh, Thanapat Tirapong Paiboom, which you're reminding us about some of his background. He's playing Joshua Tumond on that day. And Panchai is also playing against amateur Chen Rufu. And it's tiered now, isn't it? So the bigger names are going to come in, aren't they? Just saying some of the names on Thursday you might look out for. Marco Fu, Michael Holt, and Ricky Walden. And it goes through until Sunday, and really big names coming as we get towards the weekend. And that's the pattern they're doing now, isn't it?
With more of them, not all of them, but
Not all of them.
And they're all a bit different. They actually did post quite a useful China formats explained article because they're all a little bit different, unhelpfully. But the China Open is the World Championship format, so you do get a real high profile judgment day, as you were just saying.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's going to be really good, and it's a bit difficult to work out the either ors. I haven't quite done that, but I know we're going to get some good ones. And I mean, as I say, it's done because the tournaments want big names there, isn't it? it
Partly.
that's that's ultimately why it's done. It's a money thing, isn't it? They want the sort of bigger players and they're sort of protecting them more. However, the argument is also that some of the other guys down the rankings have more chance of winning earlier matches where they're not going up against sort of superstars as we were sometimes seeing. So that when the Barry Hearn era kicked off, that was the kind of idea, wasn't it? I've got no favours. They're all going to go in together. But more and more people, Joe Perry comes to mind. I know wouldn't have been the only one, but I think he might have said it on here. He thought it should be tiered for a long time, and other people have said it too. Pretty sure Joe would have said that.
Yeah.
It's that's the way it's going. I don't know. It's one of those I don't particularly have a strong opinion on. I think I can see both sides of that really, but yeah, that's the way we're going to see it, Phil. And you must be looking forward to it. I mean, we don't have too much of a break. I like the way you expressed it on the table. It's just like, what break really? But they're all
Yeah.
overlapping to each other, all the events. But this is key, isn't it? It's funny because it's not on the venue, and that's the thing. It's not the eventual venue. It's always a bit of a funny narrative in some ways.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if players just feel completely separate from it, but I'm sure they'll get their game face and game head on. Like, well, I've got to do well in this because the rewards, if you get there, are massive.
Yeah, it's huge for these guys, really. As I say, it's the World Championship style. So to get through, I think it's 10 grand if you come through to the main stage, and then obviously the
Mm.
winner's £250,000. Um, and yeah, I mean, there's not much holiday for these guys. I mean, a lot of these players won't have played since sort of like the early days of the World Championship qualifying, so that is a fair amount of a break. But a lot of the top guys have got a long while since till they still play because these the main stage of these tournaments aren't until August, so it's a big old gap between them. But got a lot of tournaments to fit in. But yeah, no, it's really important for the guys who, well, everyone really, but anyone who might have tour survival worries. I was looking at the sort of provisional end of season rankings, and they're only like a halfway gauge really for the people on tour card on 2 year tour cards. But Luca Brissell is on that fringe. Someone like Ricky Walden I noticed was around there as well. So they've got work to do, and that will start with the China Open and Wuhan Open qualifiers. But yeah, some of those. Some of the sort of like final day ones on Sunday the 14th, we could be getting um, Bingham against Brissell, Lasowski against Chambing Yu, Aaron Hill against Gary Wilson are all possibles.
Oh,
So
wow.
some attractive looking contests.
Yes, you did look at it properly. I like that. Well, there's some good, there's some goodies there, isn't
Only
there? Yeah,
possibles at this stage, but
yeah.
you'd watch them if they were on.
You would indeed. Is that it for the qualifiers for now? Should we,
I
anything
think
more to
so.
say?
Yeah, I mean, there's yeah, we don't. We'll speak again before the Wuhan ones, but yeah, the China Open ones start on Wednesday and come to a head on Sunday when we'll know the 16 that are going to the China Open with the world's top 16.
Indeed, and then yeah, Wuhan to come afterwards. Yeah, I think when we come next time, we'll go through the results, won't we, from China and have a look at some of the earlier ones from Wuhan. So that's kind of the way we aim to do it. I mean, I think the new season getting underway. I think we're just any other business really in terms of wrapping other matters up. I mean, just from my point of view, I've got Radio Snooker returning. I'll appreciate it if you tuned in. I did want to say a couple of things, Phil, about some of the other people we know for the snooker media business. It's great to see that Michael Day will be commentating for WST Play on all the qualifiers this season. I'm really pleased for Michael. He's a brilliant snooker man who I always enjoy seeing and spending time with, as happened recently at the Crucible. And I know he'll do a terrific job. And another person I've always liked a great amount is David Caulfield, who, by the way, was the very first voice that wasn't us on this podcast. I didn't have down here, but it's just come to my mind. 15 years of Snooker HQ. Now, that is a bloody
Well
hell
done,
of an
yeah.
effort. That is marvellous, isn't it? I mean, proper journalism. I'm pretty sure he doesn't work, he works in other fields still, David,
Mm.
but he could work in journalism. He's very strong, always a top resource, Snooker HQ. So That's brilliant, and I wanted to say congratulations. I think he's a bit unheralded, David, really, for considering that length of time and what he's done. So, yeah, that's a bit of a shout out from me, and
Yeah.
over to you.
Oh, well, I'd like to echo those thoughts. Yeah, no, Snooker HQ is very, very good effort. Yeah, well, that's a long time to, and he's very, very consistent and high quality stuff. So yeah, I agree there. And yeah, interesting to see how Michael does there. That's a great gig for him. It's good news that those qualifiers are going to have commentary on because it is tricky. I mean, you can sit and watch a stream with no commentary, but you know, I find I'm often sort of working while I'm doing it or doing something else, and you miss something, you don't know what's going on. So it is a lot better when there's commentary on. So good news that WST Play will be covering a lot more of that. So yeah, great stuff. Yeah, you mentioned the table up behind. If everyone's listening who hasn't signed up for my newsletter yet, please do. Very helpful for me if you do. You'll find that on Metro. They plaster it across all my articles, so you can't miss my enormous face on there now. It's a bit embarrassing. But there's that, and I've spoken to in recent days Stan Moody, Liam Pullen, and Fergal Quinn, Northern Irish Pro. So interviews coming in the next 2 or 3 days with all those guys. Liam and Stan on their Crucible experiences had some interesting things to say. And Fergal was telling me all about his career before he was a snooker player, which was very interesting as well. So a little tease for you there. Some good stuff coming.
Classic Haig, that's brilliant. Well, we'll look forward to that for sure. And we should probably go, shouldn't we? Um, the good thing is, Phil, I don't think snooker will have much competition. I can't think of any other big sporting event starting this week. So snooker should get a nice free run. Great to see you, and all the best, Senor. And that went down that went down appropriately for once. Me calling everyone Senor when I was in Ibiza, it actually meant something. Um,
Yeah. No, it's a
I
pleasure to be back. Pleasure to be back in action. It doesn't feel like long, but it's good to be back on the airwaves. And thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you're looking forward to another great season.
I'll be surprised if they're not, if they're listening to this. It'd be a bit of a downer, wouldn't it? So we're not looking forward to it at all. I presume most people are. All the best. Keep your thoughts coming. It's absolute tumbleweed. I looked at our email. We don't promote it much anymore, but if you do want to send us one, it's talkingsnooker@yahoo.com or tweet
Get
us
some
at
wild
talkingsnooker.
predictions in. Wild predictions for the
Yeah,
season on anything.
like that. Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to hear those. All the best. See you next time, Phil. Thanks to everybody for listening, and we should say this is Talking Snooker, and for now, from your old friends Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Cheerio.